Good evening, everybody. My name is Miss Reed, the founder of DaaamnDaddy.com, where daddy issues drop discussion, and this is the discussion room. Tonight, we have joining with us as our guest, Miss Ira Warren, and we're going to talk about her indubitable resilience. How are you this evening, Ira?
I'm fantastic. I feel real good this evening. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So I met Ira a couple months ago while volunteering for a daddyless daughters, fatherless sons conversation in Philadelphia. And when I met her, she
Mhm.
was telling me about her life story and the documentary she was having the pleasure of coming from. Can you tell us a little bit about your documentary that day and what the topic was?
It was along the same lines. It was called Daddyless Daughters, and it was me and five other beautiful queens. We were all stationed, at a friend of mine's home. She opened up her house for us to record the documentary, and it was powerful. I mean, we just dug really deep, and we just shared our stories, about, things that happen in our homes. And they said, that my question was, Ira, was your father in the home? And yes, my father was in the home, but I'm gonna wait till you ask me the next question, then I could go ahead and go more into it.
Okay, so being that you brought that up, your father is in the home. We talk here about how daddy issues drive discussion. And one of the biggest points I like to drive home is that daddy issues manifest themselves in different ways. A lot of times when people hear the term daddy issues,
Right.
they assume absentee or they assume deadbeat or they assume that he just wasn't there to be absentee or deadbeat at all. Some people's parents are deceased or just never met him at all. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience having a father in the home?
Um, I always start off, and I want to say this: I was grateful and fortunate to have both my parents in the home. And my dad, he was the good guy in the neighborhood. Everybody loves my dad. He was a fireman. He did things in the community with the youth. We had like our own boxing thing, where my dad would teach, the youth how to box and ride bikes. I mean, my dad was like the epitome of what a dad should be in the public's eye. But at night, inside the home, he was a totally different person. I mean, he was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like I said, I was very fortunate to have my dad in the home, but his definition of what a dad should have been was not ideal, because his definition of love was, I want to have sex with you. His definition of love, I want to share some things with you, and this is what daddies do. And so I knew that that was distorted at 4 years old. I knew something was wrong with that picture. I was like, I don't think this is what daddy's supposed to be doing with their daughters, and he, in my little mind, he had a way of grooming and convincing me, yes, it is. I promise you, all daddies do this with their daughters. So, like I said, I just came from a real distorted view of what a relationship between a daughter and a father was supposed to look like or was supposed to feel like. So I never did experience that because it came from, molestation. It started there. Um, so it was my dad. Like I said, my dad was very manipulative. He was controlling. Um, Mom was getting beat almost every day. So, like I said, in the inside of the home, dad was, totally different. But in the public's eye, everybody just thought that he was God. I'm gonna be honest with you.
So I'm glad you brought that up because right now there is a public figure who's experiencing some light shed on his home life for domestic violence. And you brought up that you were experiencing this abuse from dad, but so was mom. So we normally discuss domestic violence awareness in October, but April is both child abuse awareness and sexual assault awareness month. How I usually ask
Mhm.
people how do they feel about their mother's ability to protect them or not from the things that they've experienced. With your mom experiencing her own type of abuse, do you feel that she was an ally to you? in your experience in the household?
No, my mom wasn't an ally. When we were children, I heard these words echo in my ears every day. Y'all, you're gonna do what your daddy tell you to do. And my mom, she would say, he's God to me, and whatever he says, do. Like I said, my mom, my dad was beating my mom almost every day. And so she was like this codependent person, they both was like, I could say they both was enablers towards each other, because my dad was illiterate. My dad had a third grade education. My mom was, well educated. She graduated salutatorian, and she was attracted to, his stature. My dad is a very good looking man. My mom, she 4'8", my dad 6'3". He had nice cars. He always kept a job, had a lot of money. And so that was like the main attraction for my mom, his looks and what he could give her. So it didn't matter what he was doing to her, with his fists, as long as he was giving her the diamond rings, the car, the money, the house, it was okay for her to, she was okay. It was okay with her to get beat. She was okay with that, until things just got really, to the point where my dad was using objects. He was using bats and kicking her with steel-toe boots, just all kinds of stuff. It escalated. It went from a slap to, his words, to a slap, to a fist. And then when he felt like, okay, you think you tough, I got something for you, so that it just escalated.
You mentioned knowing at 4 years old that the relationship that your father was initiating with you was not what would be one that's appropriate. Can you describe that experience from your 4-year-old self? What was it that led you to know this isn't okay?
Well, I knew, when I remember when I was, a little girl, because I always looked up to my dad. I loved him, so much. I guess because it was of his stature. My dad was really tall, and I could always remember when he would come in the house from work, I would run and just jump up, in his arms. And, as a little girl, that was the memory and what I wanted to feel when I was a little girl. But when I would be lifted from my bed at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. in the morning, to go sit in the den, supposedly to watch TV with dad, it would lead to fondling, or this is daddy, me and you special kiss, it would always be this special everything, special this, special that. So he said, you my main girl, you always gonna be my baby girl. And so, like I said, it just led from the kissing to the fondling. And then by the time I turned 6, 7 years old, I was watching porn. And I would cover my eyes. I would remember just like, no, I didn't. And he would say, no, I just want you to see, what body parts look like. And this is, this is the penis, and this is where this goes, So that was like his form of sex education. He was, trying to teach me this is this, and this is that. But it wasn't until I was 9 years old when the penetration actually started. So he was grooming me from 4 years old all the way to 9 years old. And so it was a lot of things in between. It was from I want to show you daddy, so he would show me his private areas and stuff. And I remember just crying and always covering my face. And he would get angry. Like, I was like a full-grown woman. He would get so upset. Like, why? I want you to look at me because I'm gonna always be your main guy. He would always say that. I'm your main guy. I'm gonna always be your first love. And so you might as well get used to it. So I heard those words for so many years.
In describing that experience and how he said to you, he'll always be your first love, did you find it difficult to determine when you were ready to date, to determine what real love felt like from a man?
Yes, it was very difficult because I thought that, well, no, I didn't thought anything. Let me not say I thought. I thought, okay, I'll say, well, I got to give my body. This is what love is. So in order for me to feel some type of acceptance. I have to give my body because after all, you know, this is what Dad said. Dad said, this is what you have to do, you know, because if you give of yourself, a man is going to appreciate. He would tell me a man would appreciate you. He's going to love you. He's going to protect you. But you know, you have to give a man something. And he was like, he said, you don't have a job, you don't have a car. He said, so the most precious thing that he would say this, you know, about himself, the most precious thing that you could give to me is your body. But then when I did start dating, it's crazy. I attracted the same type of man that my father was, you know, and, you know, so, and that's what I thought. I thought that I had to give my body in order to feel some type of acceptance.
That's something we discuss here in the discussion room as far as women growing to date men like their fathers, whether it's intentional, unintentional, subliminal, and maybe in your case, the grooming of that from such an early age. He wasn't just grooming you for sexual pleasure. He was grooming you mentally for what love is, mm-hmm. sounds like, and looks like. So that's just a whole different level of attraction when it comes to, you know, dealing with men.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have siblings in the home during this time?
Yes, I did have siblings in the home. And the crazy thing is, I didn't even know that my oldest sister was being molested. And how that came about was I was in the bathroom crying, and she came in, and she came in the bathroom, and she said, Ira, what's going on? You know, why are you crying? And I was like, you know, Daddy's touching me, and you too. And it escalated from there. So we had that conversation, but it was one time that we had that conversation. And I remember my sister telling me, she said, well, did he tell you it was a secret? And I was like, yeah, he told me it was a secret. She said, well, we should keep it a secret because we don't want to destroy the family. Now here we are, we just like toddlers, you know, having this conversation. Like, you know, my sister, she was 8, I'm 6. And we were actually having like this adult conversation, like we can't tell anybody because we don't want to upset mommy. You know, we have other siblings and we don't want daddy to go to jail. I mean, we was having a serious conversation, and I can remember that to this day. But the crazy thing is, this was another thing that I didn't know. Now that as I look back on those times when we were living in Gary, Indiana, that's originally where I'm from. And as time had, you know, went on, my sister, she was sharing some things with me. You know, she said, you know, when dad would send mom to the store, and my dad would give her a certain time that she had to, you know, leave and come back. So if it was an hour to go to the store, she would stay out exactly at that time and show up at that time. He only did that because he wanted to do what he wanted to do with us. And I didn't find out until like 3 or 4 years later. My sister said, did he make you do something with our brothers? And I was like, yeah. So he was strategic how he would do things. So if I would ask to go to a friend's house, he would send me to a friend's house. My oldest sister would stay there, but my brothers would be there. But I never, like I said, I didn't put 2 and 2 together until she told me that he would make her do things to our brothers. And I was like, well, he made me do that too. And so it was levels to his sickness, you know. So he would sit there and he was like, okay, well, this to your brother. And I would go, no. And I would get beat because I was one of those, no, I'm not doing that. And I'm 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. I'm not doing that. Well, touch your brother. No, I'm not doing that. And then he would tell my brother, well, why don't you do? No. And so we would all sit there and we crying, and he's beating us with a stitcher cord and saying, if you don't do this, you know, you're going to get something that you don't want. So like I said, it was just levels to his sickness and things that he would make us do when we were children.
So with your sister sharing with you that mom was assigned these times to leave the house, do you feel your mom knew, or at what age did you all decide to reveal to mom what was going on? Because you said that at 6 and 8, you decided that's not a good idea to tell anybody.
Right. I remember I had got up enough nerve, and I was getting ready to turn 9 years old. And I told my sister, I said, listen, I'm going to tell mom. And she was like, no, you're going to ruin your birthday party. And dad is not going to let our cousins come over. Why don't you tell her after your birthday, you know? And I was like, no, I'm going to tell her now. Because I was always this strong-willed person. I said, I'm going to tell her now because I'm tired of it. And I remember mom was up. She was preparing barbecue, for my birthday. And she had made this beautiful cake. My mom, she was like the Black Martha Stewart. This woman could cook and she could bake a cake. And I remember walking in the kitchen. And I said, Mom, can I talk to you? And she was like, girl, what? It was never a pleasant conversation with my mom. It was always this, what do you want? And I was like, well, I just need to talk to you. And she said, it couldn't be that bad, and I'm just like, well, Mom, I just need to talk to you. And she looks down at me and she said, well, what is it? And I said, well, Dad's been touching me. And she didn't even, it was like she heard me. And then the next thing I knew her hand was going across my face and she smacked me and blood just sprayed the wall. And she said, get your blank out of here, clean your face, and I don't want to hear this again. She just totally like shut down. Like, I don't want to hear it. So I just remember that day. I wasn't into my birthday party. All my cousins was asking me what was wrong. And you could see the smack mark across my face. And so my cousin said, what happened to your face? Why your face look like that? And I was just like, no, I said, I fell. I was just making up these lies because I didn't want to get into it with my cousin. But I remember my 9th birthday, I wasn't happy. And I remember telling her that, and I could just see her eyeballing me the whole time the party was going on. Like, don't you say a word. Don't you tell nobody, and this is the way it's going to be. And so we never talked about it again until I was like 14 years old.
14, when you become of age and things of that nature. So at what point did it stop?
It didn't stop until I got pregnant. We lived in Indiana until I was like 11 and a half. We moved. It was like an abrupt thing. My dad rushed in the house on a Saturday morning. It was the summer of 1980. He said, we got to go. And nobody knew what happened. All we know was we was living on 601 Allen Street for, part of my almost going into my teenage years. And we rushed to see Mama Dill. We said bye. And next thing we know, we were in Arkansas with my dad's mom. And he let us stay with her for 10 months. And then my mom and dad drove to Texas to, find jobs, get everything set up. It was just, everything just happened so fast. But I remember just being so free and just so happy that I didn't have to go through the abuse for 10 months, until my grandmother said, listen, I'm tired. I cannot keep these children. You need to come and get them. And so my dad and my mom, they drove back to Arkansas. They drove from Texas to Arkansas and picked us up. This was before Christmas. And so we moved, to Texas. And then, it wasn't even, we didn't even get in the house and get situated and fix up our rooms before the abuse started again. And I remember my dad said, everybody have their own room. I was excited. I was like, not even thinking this man strategically did this, so he could have his way with his own children. So he bought this 6-bedroom house. Yes, all of us had our own room. The crazy thing was, so now we were sleeping in our closets because we were so scared. We were so tired of the abuse. And during this time, time went on, 14 years old, went to my mom again. And I said, Mom, look, I said, he's doing everything under the sun to us. And I'm just tired of it. And she was like, okay. She said, well, if all of this is true, y'all stay home from school. Don't say anything. Wait till he go to work and just pretend that y'all are sick and we'll just pack some stuff and leave. We did leave. We went to the Salvation Army. We ended up getting a room with my mom and my 4 siblings. We all stayed in this room. And the lady there, the counselor there, she said, I'm gonna get y'all some help. She said, she asked my mom, did she have any, a high school diploma? My mom said, yes, I have a high school diploma. And she said, what is it that you want to do? My mom said, I really want to be a nurse and I want to do this and that. She said, okay, well, we'll get you some help and we'll get a safe place for you and your children and we'll help you get a home and all of that. That did not go well with my mom. I don't think, Shamiko, I don't even think we were there 24 hours. We woke up the next morning, just before we went down to to go get breakfast. My mom said, listen, I'm sick of this. Y'all gonna go downstairs and y'all gonna tell this lady it did not happen. Do y'all understand me? And I mean, my mom was snatching us up and she was hitting us. And my sister was like, Mom, it really did happen. Why are you, so we crying. So we had to, because it was Mom, we did what she said. So we went back downstairs, and my older sister and I, we holding hands, and we sitting in the chair in front of the lady with tears streaming down our face. And she said, well, what's going on? And my sister, I'm looking down, and my sister's looking up at the lady like midway, and she was like, it really didn't happen. She goes, and she leans forward. She said, I know that this happened to you ladies. She said, but let us help you. She said, you don't have to go back to that situation. And so the lady walked us back upstairs, and she looked at my mom, and she was like, this would be so sick for you to put your children back in this situation. And my mom said, you don't know my life. Who are you? You're not my children's father. You don't have a house and a home and a car. And she said, but we can help you. We can help you, Miss Jacobs. We left and we went back home. So when we got back to the house, my dad was standing by the stairway. We had a staircase that went like this, and he was standing like a couple of steps up. And so when we walked in, and he was like, y'all trying to make me look like the villain. I mean, he was doing this whole theatrical. My mom fell for it. And my mom told us to go to our rooms, and I could hear my mom downstairs talking to my dad. And I looked at my sister, and she looked at me, and I was just like, it's not going to stop. It stopped maybe 4 or 5 days, and then he started it up again. It just, it was, like I said, his level of sickness and perverted mind, it was just levels and levels and levels, Some of the stuff, I wouldn't even want, I've shared my story so many times. It's some things that I have never even said, like, I will share this. He would do things like, to appease my mom, to make himself look like he's the disciplinary in the family. Now we got breasts, and we done started our administration, all of that. He would make us strip down to our nothing, and my mom would stand and watch him beat us with a stitching cord until our flesh was darn near coming off our bones, and she would let this man beat us. And he would throw us in a bathtub full of alcohol and leave us in there.
Mm-hmm. Wow. My next statement was going to be that hurt people, and to find out, because when we began talking, you seem to still have some level of respect and adoration for your father, despite all of you've experienced. Was there anything that you learned about his upbringing that gave you a better understanding of what he put you all through?
Well, my dad is the oldest of many children. Like I tell people, I can't get into how many it is, but the ones that I do know is 13 from what I do know. But my dad is the oldest. And my dad grew up very poor. Like I said, he had a 3rd grade education. Neither of his parents could read or write. They picked cotton for a living. And my dad, he was born in Tennessee, and then they moved to Osceola, Arkansas when he was 5 years old. And they lived in a tin house. I mean, it was 2-bedroom. They had this gas metal stove right smack dab in the middle of the living room, and everything was tight. And they had an outhouse, so you had to go outside to use the restroom. So that just give you a visual of, how my dad grew up. But they had this thing where kissing cousins was okay. When I asked my dad, when my dad went to prison, my dad did go to prison, but not because of what he did to me and my siblings. That's another story. But I asked him, was he ever molested? And he said, no, I was never, molested. He said, and for him to admit it, he said, I just had a craving, for young, tender girls like my daughters. And he said, yeah, I was sick. And I wanted, I don't know, I just wanted my daughters. And I was like, wow. So my dad was never molested, but however, my dad, I caught my dad having sex with one of my aunts when I was 6 years old. Went to my grandmother told me to get some ice cream out of the basement. And so when I'm walking down, you know, and I hear these moaning sound, I'm like, well, what's this noise? So when I get to the bottom, my dad is having sex with my aunt. And I'm like, you know, and next thing you know, I was grabbed by my dress, you know, and I'm looking up and I'm terrified. And they said, you better not say nothing. And so my aunt, you know, she lifts herself up off the freezer so I could get the ice cream, and she shoves it in my chest and she said, go back upstairs and don't you tell nobody that we down here. So I knew it was something sick about that, you know, at
based on their
6
reaction.
years old. I'm like, yeah, there was all kind of perversion in the family. So that's what it is with that. So.
So you shared that the abuse stopped once you got pregnant. What allowed you to move on? You said you've shared your story several times. This is not the first time. It's the first time I'm hearing certain pieces, but you know, you were very open with me on the day we met. What allowed you to get to this space? How did you get from this person who knew this was wrong, who refused to participate and was often the recipient of physical abuse for refusing sexual abuse? How did you become the person you are today, who's able to share this story with others and be so calm about it?
Well, the thing is, I knew I had to come to some acceptance, you know, what all that has happened to me in my life. And then only to discover, I knew I wasn't the only one. I had childhood friends that were going through it. It wasn't just the girls, it was the boys as well that was going through, you know, child molestation with, if it wasn't one parent, it was both parents. And so I knew that I wanted to be, ever since I was a little girl, there was 3 things that I wanted to be. One, I always knew I wanted to be a minister. And one, I knew I wanted to be a solid gold dancer. You couldn't tell me I wanted to be a solid gold dancer. And I wanted to be an actress. Those were the 3 things. Those were my top 3 things. And being a minister and watching my my mom's father was a minister. He was a pastor, and he started a church when my mom and her siblings were very small. And so when my mom and her siblings started having children, we were able to, you know, just see part of that legacy, you know, with Reverend Eddie Jones. And it was, a lot of it was just my faith and what was instilled in me. And I would always hear my grandfather say, he said, in this life, you're going to have trials. And he was like, and I'm telling you, what Jesus went through on the cross, he was like, you better rest assured that you would never go through anything on that magnitude, in which he said, I'm not saying you're not going to go through anything. And so my grandfather, he would say this, we're children. So we were mandated. We had to know all 66 books in the Bible. We had to learn Psalms 23. So we had scripture put in us, you know, so it was the word of God that was always put in us and put in us. But it was a point in time where I said, I don't think that there's a God. So if there was really a God, why would he let these things happen to me? So it wasn't until I started remembering scripture and going back and saying, And then I remember Job and all the stuff that he went through. So I remember all these stories and stuff in the Bible, and I read other books as well. But then it just gave me hope. And I was like, if he and she and her and him could get through this, I said, you know what? I said, some things I don't believe that it was just all God. I just believe that it's you know, the sin of my dad and the sins of my parents, and I was born in the sin, and you know, he was never taught anything, you know, correctly about his faith, because my dad, he believed that you could have several wives. My mom, she believed something different. So it was just a weird setup in the first place. So I just knew my faith was strong. Even when I was a little girl, I remember my mom telling me before I moved to Philadelphia, it's been 3 years now. And my mom told me this before I moved here, and she had tears rolling down her face. And she said, no matter what has happened, I have never in my life seen somebody that's so forgiving and so loving. And I said to myself, I said, God, it's only God that could have built me this way. because I've had my mom spit in my food. I've had my mom deny me of food, because I would take leftovers and take it to school and give it to children that was less fortunate than myself. So I would help them. And so because my teacher, she called and she said, Ira is bringing food to school, and where is she getting this food from? And my mom, she said, oh, so you want to take food to school, huh? And I was like, well, I was just helping. And my mom said, and that never broke you? Because I always knew I just wanted to help people. So a lot of it was just my faith and what I heard and what was instilled in me that helped me to overcome, to become the person that I am now. And I said, because everybody goes through obstacles. Everybody goes through pain. Whether it was drugs, alcohol, molestation, domestic violence, everybody in this world has gone through some type of pain, and I'll say, and I wanted to come to some acceptance, and I wanted to get over the guilt, the shame, the hurt, and the pain, and all of that, so that I could become a whole person. Because I was like, I can't let this thing define me. I can't let it mold me and shape me into this person to go into suicide, to kill myself. It has been some times where I had some ideation going on where I was into cutting and using things to scrub my private areas raw. I mean, I would have to get several surgeries because I couldn't stand the touch, and I didn't like sex, and it was just a lot of things going on with me. But I just equate all of it to God and Him helping me to get to this point.
So 2 questions, they're not necessarily directly related, but 2 things I want to touch on. One, the molestation epidemic. I want to know more about your work with that, but also motherhood. You mentioned not feeling that your mother was an ally. How did you work to be the mother you felt you deserved?
Well, I would always tell, well, this was one thing. I remember me and my sister, my older sister, she asked me, she said, Ira, how many kids do you want? I said, I want 7. I want 6 boys and 1 girl, and I want to be the best mommy ever. And I would always tell her when I was a little girl, I used to write down things that my mom would do to me. And I said, I'm not going to do that to my children, And so I was, pretty much prepping myself to say, I don't want to be. I said, I'm going to love my children. I'm going to hug my children. So I never knew. My mom never hugs me. My mom didn't start hugging me until I was in my late 30s. So I never knew what that felt like. And I was like, I'm going to nurture my children. I'm going to hug them. I'm going to love them. And that was the time I said, I'm going to protect my children. And like I said, I believe I just kind of just put those affirmations in my head when I was a child. This is the type of mother that I wanted to be. And not popping my collar. I was the best. Listen, my children can call me right now and they'd be like, how you doing, queen? You good today? Now, they were upset with me when I moved because they was like, oh, you moved away for a man. I was like, nope. God just had a different plan for my life, so it wasn't that. But I have a very, very close relationship with my children. We talk about everything. And they would tell, and my children would tell anybody, who my best friend is? My mom. I homeschooled my children. We went to games. We went on dinner days. We talked about sex, drugs, alcohol. We did all of those things. So, I have a son that decided he wanted to go and do something different. And he, they gave him 15 years in prison. He's done 7. And that's been hard for me. And as a mom and going through that still kind of pierced me a little bit because I know that my son, he's a good man. He's never been in trouble before, but because he was with the wrong people at the wrong time, he ended up getting the same consequences as those he was running with.
One of those, the hand of one is the hand of all type law.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep, it was that kind of thing. But I have an awesome relationship with my children. But unfortunately, some things did happen, with my son that I did have by my dad. My mom, she pretended that she wanted a relationship with me. My parents was going through a divorce in 93. And this was the year that I married my first husband. She said, I want you to come back home. Your dad is leaving me, for one of my high school friends. He married her and he molested her children. So that's when he went to prison. that's a whole nother story. But I really felt that she wanted a relationship with me moving forward. My son had fallen off my bed because we had a 3-bedroom apartment. I had, I was working 3 jobs taking care of my children. And Joshua had fallen off the bed onto one of those plug-in heaters. And I quickly rushed into the hospital. And the doctors, they didn't look at me as like I was abusing my children. They said, the children are dressed well, their hair is cut. We don't see any, they were asking my baby questions. They said, well, is your mom hurting you? They go, no, I fell off the bed. So Josh was like, I fell off the bed. I was playing. And so they say, okay, Miss Jacobs, just be careful and watch your child. So the Child Protective Services didn't come for me or anything. But it wasn't until I moved in with my mom. And she called Child Protective Services on me, and I wasn't even there 3 days at her house. I left my apartment and everything to come and move in with her. And they came, knocked on the door. I was on my way to work, and they said, are you Ira Jacobs? And I said, yes. So they said, well, can we come in? They took my babies in the room, strip searched them, looked at them, all this. I'm like, well, what is going on? They said, well, it was a call that said that you are abusing your children. I said, what? They told me I had to leave the house, and I said, oh no, y'all not leaving my children here. It was something in my gut. I was like, y'all not leaving my children here. But where else would they was gonna go? I had no family members other than my mom and dad that lived in Texas. So I was escorted at the house. My children was left there. Long story short, my brother, he spent 6 years in prison, and I didn't find out that he had molested my child that I had by my dad. I didn't find out. He was 14 years old when I found out. My mom hid it. She didn't say anything. She had like several chances to, bring this thing to the forefront, but she was like, well, we can just talk about it. And I said, there's nothing to talk about. And I remember I had a knife and I was going to kill my brother that day. It took everybody in the house to pull me off of him. And it was just like I said, this curse has to stop. This generational curse has to stop. And I sat and I talked to my children about it over and over and over until they was like, Mom, please. I was like, no, y'all gonna hear this. So it's been so much in my life, but I just take that pain and say, okay, this is my purpose. This is what I got to do, not to only continue to heal myself by sharing my truth, but giving to others, my pain, because it has to be my purpose. What else is it? I said, I've been through it. I've gone through it. So why not share it and me continue to get the therapy that I need and somebody else can get help?
So I'm glad you mentioned therapy, but I do want to double back to the molestation epidemic. You talked about your father marrying a high school friend of yours and how you found out that other children that you grew up with were experiencing the same thing in their homes by one parent, if not both. And I know that when we met, you met one of my previous guests who also experienced molestation at the hands of a parent, a step parent in their situation. What led you to do this work? You said that your pain is your purpose, but what is your goal with the molestation epidemic? And are you, just tell me.
Well, my goal is right now I'm finishing up my children's book.
Okay.
And the name of that book is called Bodyguard. And my goal is to get into the schools and the homes and reach these children early, because somehow, I don't know, when you talk to people, they think molestation start when you're a teenager. Molestation start when you're a baby. I said, sometimes I always think in my mind, was my dad touching me when I was an infant? So I think about those things. So I want to educate, especially single moms. They feel like they have to have somebody in their life, and you don't know who you bring into your house and your children is going to be exposed to. So that's my goal. I want to get into the schools. I don't care if it's on the street corner at this point. I just want to get this information out and, to educate not only children, but to teach parents to be aware of the signs, because if your new boyfriend is just extra friendly with your 13-year-old daughter that's fully developed, then we need to have a conversation. And why is your new boyfriend being left in the house with your daughter and your son? Because they have, it's no, is no partiality in this day and time, because they go for boys and girls. So it doesn't matter what a pedophile. So that's my goal. The book will be out this summer. So I'm pushing for this summer for it to be out. And just continue. I have done, since I moved to Philadelphia, I think I've done like 7 documentaries sharing my story. And actually, one documentary will be out in May. It's called She Rise. And that one will be out. Actually, we'll be going back to New Jersey for the showing of that one. And then I also worked with Bridget Martin and did a documentary with her, several with her. And, so it's just been a whole lot of talk about this. And I was like, I just don't want to talk about it and not be about it. But this has just given me a whole lot of therapy, to be free with my story. Like even on today, I went and shared, it's called Tuesday story. That is 2 young ladies. I believe they live in Maryland, and they go to different states, and they, ask people to share their testimony. And I could just see the looks on their faces. They was like, what? They was like, it was like a motion picture, you sharing your story and you so free. And I want to be free. I have to continue to be free to share, because it's nothing like having a story so big and having so much going on, and I'm bawling my eyes out, and someone's looking at me and like, is she okay? I mean, she's sharing a story. I mean, yeah, it was some times that I cried and I wasn't over certain things, but I want people to see the freedom in my life, and I want people to know that they can overcome and that they can too share their story. So that's my goal, is to get the word out of Molestation Epidemic. We have T-shirts, wristbands. Last year we went to a skating rink, and it was grandmothers, grandfathers, children everywhere. We did like a video, and it was a 13-year-old girl. She was like, I'm so happy you did this. I'm so happy that you're here. And then we did like a Facebook Live. A 10-year-old boy walked up to me. He said, I'm so glad that you're doing this. He said, I'm here with my foster parents, and I was molested by my dad. And I was like, now here's this beautiful young Black prince walk up to me, and he said, I'm bold enough to share because you share, So we have information, booklets. I do have some booklets that I do, give out when I do go out to speak. So that's my ultimate goal, is to get this children's book done and just get the campaign going and make it happen.
You mentioned therapy. Now, I think that everything you just shared is amazing. Being able to have access and impacting young people. And he said, I'm bold enough to share because you shared. And you also talked about how this work is therapy for you. And I know that the whole DaaamnDaddy identity started for me as therapy. It originally was called Dealing with Daddy Issues. And I would talk about, trust issues or dating and different ways that I felt that daddy issues were arising in my life. And it was my own kind of catharsis. Did you ever seek professional therapy, and did you find it to be impactful for you?
I did when I was going through a divorce with my ex-husband. I moved 2 hours away. I was living in Katy, Texas, which is only 15 miles outside of Houston. I moved to San Antonio. It was like, God was like, okay, this is your first step, because I had no idea I was going to be moving to Philadelphia and get married again, but that was in his plan. So I moved to San Antonio, and I just remember it was like I could feel even more of a weight just lifting off of me. But anyway, I got into massage therapy, which is another therapy for me, because at first I thought it was kind of crazy for God to open up these doors. I got a $10,000 scholarship to go to school to do massage therapy, and I didn't want to do it because I was like, wait a minute, you want me to touch people? Oh no, I ain't do. So I had this whole attitude about that, this whole thing about just touching people, and I didn't want to do it. But some things happened, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go. And I ended up going to massage school, and I've been a massage therapist for 18 years now. And I don't know, that was therapy for me. But anyway, I met this lady at this place that I was working at in San Antonio. It was Oak Haven Massage, and she was a counselor. And so I was massaging her, and she said, "You're so thorough." It's like, people could pick up on different energies and stuff like that. And it was almost like this woman was reading me like a book. She said, "But you still have a little resistance, and I don't know what that is." And I ain't gonna say nothing to this lady because I don't want her in my business, so. Yeah. But it was like the more and more she was talking, she was like, she said, I can sense freedom in your life. She wasn't a psychic or anything, but she was just like, but you still got some resistance. I can tell in like how you massage and stuff. I was like, okay. So she was like, here's my card. She left me her card. And she said, call me if you need me. And then maybe 2 weeks had passed, and I ended up calling this lady, and we met for breakfast like 2 Saturdays out of the month, and she was a big help to me. So that was the first time, I had counseling. And this was like in 2013. This is when I actually had some counseling. And so I realized that I had forgiven my dad, but I hadn't forgiven my mom, so I was just thinking, well, if I forgave him, I forgave her. And she was like, no, you still got some stuff going on with your mom. You really, really need to, go back and, revisit where Ira was at that time and why are you so upset with her? And when she said, and say things out loud, she said, say it out loud. Why are you upset? Why are you still bitter in this area towards your mom? And I just began just wailing and crying. And I was just like, I'm mad at her because she didn't protect me. And I'm mad at her because she never asked me what happened. And I remember telling the counselor that when my mom moved to Atlanta, when her and my dad divorced, I remember she called and she said, I'm coming back home. She lived in Atlanta for 5 years. And my baby sister begged her to come back. So I flew up there and we drove back. And my mom lived with me. And so I felt like that was a perfect opportunity for me and her to have this conversation because she was just like, oh, we good. I said, Mom, we're not good. I said, well, you never asked what happened. I said, yeah, I had a child by my dad, your husband. I said, but you never asked when it started. What did he do? What happened? And I remember telling her my story, and she had her arms folded, and she scratched the skin like all the way from the back part of her arm to all the way to the front part of her bicep. And she was just bleeding all and she was wailing, she was crying, she ran out the house and she was like, I can't do this. And, so then our relationship just kind of, just went downhill from there because she felt like it was in the past. Why are you talking about this? But that's something that I needed to say. But I was still angry with her more so than my own father. I was mad at her, but I'm good now. And I'm going to say this too. When I moved here, me and my parents had a relationship. Me and my fiance at the time, we stayed at their house. We broke bread. We laughed. We talked. My dad actually looked my husband now in the face and he said, you know what? My daughter's been through a lot. And he was just like, I admire her strength. And he was like, I wasn't the best dad. And she should share her story. She should tell her story, blah, blah, blah. So I get here not knowing what the plan was. I knew Divine and I was going to get married, but people was calling me and asking me to be on shows. And I was like, to do what? And it was like, we want you to share your story. And I just dug deep. It was no more surface stuff. I got down to the core and talked about stuff that I didn't talk about when I lived in Texas because everybody was around me. I felt obligated to take care of everybody. I don't know. I was just a people pleaser. I wanted to do everything to make everybody happy. But in the inside, I was hurt. I was broken because I wasn't taking care of me. So I was having a lot of issues, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. So yeah, I did get some counseling, and she was a big help. So now I see things from a different aspect. And then my husband now, he played a big part, a very big part.
So in your current marriage, how were you able to build trust with this individual?
First first of all, I didn't even want to get married again. When I met Divine, we were supposed to be talking about music, and that's it. So a friend of mine, he said, listen, Ira, I know you did your first album. He said, it's awesome. He said, well, why don't you try East Coast? Why don't you get like an East Coast beat maker? I was like, okay, I'll see. He said, he's really good. He has beats online. And I was like, okay. So my friend from high school, I said no, and I didn't listen to his beats and none of that. And I was like, okay, I'll do it today. So I went online, listened to his beats. Divine is Nice Productions. Very nice. I was like, okay, he's talented. So I called him and I was like, your beats is $11? He said, it's just to rent it. He said, if you want to buy it outright, it's going to be like $200-300. It just depends on what beat you want. I was like, okay, that's fine. So we started talking and I was asking him questions specifically about music. And then he was like, so how's your day going? So it just took a turn. I was like, okay, nah, I'm just talking about music. I'm not talking about nothing else. But then he was so pleasant and so nice. We talked for a little bit. He was like, well, I got to go to work. So on the East Coast, it was like 8 o'clock his time and 7 o'clock my time in Texas. And he was like, well, I'll talk to you later. And I was like, yeah, okay. I didn't think nothing of it because I was in a situationship with some dude that God never told me to be with, but that's neither here nor there. I was with him. A month later, I get this text message. How you doing, sweetheart? I said, who is this? He said, this is mine. And so he said, why you don't call me? And I was like, well, what's the point of me calling you? I asked the questions I need to ask about this music, so it don't need to be calling you about nothing else. So I did. I called him and I was like, how you doing today? And he was like, I'm doing great. He was like, you was on my mind. I was like, this is weird. I said, this is really, really weird. And I don't know, just one night I had got off work. I was in my feelings about something and I just began to pour my soul out to this person that I didn't even know. And he was very quiet, but I could hear like some, I said, are you okay? And he was like, oh, that happened to you? He was like, oh, that happened to you? And he was like, well, only thing I could tell you is that you need to come to some acceptance with some things. I was sure that my story alone was going to run that brother off because guys that I had talked to previously, I told them my story because the scar on my face is always like the icebreaker. What happened to your face? Oh, I was stabbed, by a high school boyfriend. What? And then, my story opens up from there. And so some guys, it wouldn't even be 24 hours on. It was like, oh, she got a lot of baggage. I don't want to deal with it. But he didn't see it. My husband didn't see it as baggage. He saw it as a woman that didn't ask for any of these things to happen to her. He saw it as beauty. He saw it as I could grow with this woman. He said the second time that we talked on the phone, he said, I knew you was my wife. And I was like, you know how many times I done heard this, this whole I knew you was my wife thing. And he was sincere. He was like sincere. So I flew up here. I met him. I stayed 4 days. It was beautiful. Then I flew back 2014, the same year, was the day after Christmas, to tell him I didn't want to do this. I said, I don't want to do this, with you. I said, well, let's just be friends. And he looked at me. He was like, Ira. He stood over me. He was standing like in the doorway of his bedroom, and I was sitting on his chair, and he was like, I love you. And he was like, I want to help you heal. I want to grow with you. I want to do this. And I was saying to myself, yep, that sounds good. And then I move up here and you be something different, totally. And he's been more than what I thought that this whole thing would turn out to be. Our marriage has been beautiful. We have some days we both get on each other's nerves, but he has helped me to grow. He's helped me to see that I am a beautiful entity by myself. He has helped me to know my worth. He has helped me, he's one that you can stand right here and stand without me chug-a-lugging with you, you know. So I'm strong. I'm strong by myself, you know. If God forbid, say, Divine, it's time for you to come on home, it would hurt me to know that my husband has gone on, but I'm strong. You know, I'm more aware of my surroundings. I pay more attention to things, what's being said to me. He is giving me books to read. We pray together. I don't know. It's just everything about how God did this thing was just awesome. And people, they've heard my story while he's with me, and they'd be like, "Hey, you married her?" And he was like, "Yeah." He goes, that's my wife, and everything about her is beautiful. And he said, and she has overcome. She's overcome.
Absolutely.
And he was like, and we're gonna keep getting this thing out there. So that's my story with him.
Well, I'm glad you shared that, because when I saw you on Friday, when I saw you last Friday, during the table talks, there was a young lady struggling to forgive her mom who's deceased. And she was saying that she needed to work on forgiveness to be ready for new people entering her life. And I happened to share with her that sometimes it takes a new person accepting you where you are to help you get to the next step. Because I experienced that. I had been doing the blog and I had been doing the interviews, and I just had one person who kept pushing me when I was getting tired of blogging, when I was getting tired, I don't want to talk to anybody else, I don't want to talk about daddy issues anymore. They had experienced something similar to my upbringing with the incarceration and all that. And you know, just like you said, your husband told you, I want to grow with you. I feel that from them. I feel them not just, you know, not just in the, oh, I feel their energy, but their actions and their words let me know that this person is in full support of my growth, and they want to come on this journey with me. And I think that if I had stayed stuck in the mindset that I needed to be someone else in order to receive that type of love and adoration, I may not have been at this place. So I'm definitely glad that you shared your story and how you had done that with other men and it chased them off. But with this person, their reaction was different, and that lets you know that you were safe to pursue something more.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we are winding down to the last bit of our time, and I know that I invited you here today because it is both Child Abuse Awareness and Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and I feel like your story encompasses awareness for both of those things. Is there anything you would like to say as a final note, some of the tips that you would like to give to parents to not only be aware and notice the signs, but how to have that conversation? And then finally, where people can follow up with you and keep in contact and learn more about the me experience, which is molestation epidemic.
Okay. Well, this is what I would say. You know, a lot of us, when we go through abuse of any type, the first thing we want to do is have a closed mouth. And a lot of us, we stay in the situation because we feel that there is really no way out, and it is a way out. It's just a matter of you taking that step of faith to say, I need to be safe and my children need to be safe. And once you do that, I mean, the sky is, I don't like to use the sky as the limit, because we have third heavens that reaches beyond the sky that we see. And once you step out there and you do that and you say, I need to get help, and you admit that you need some help, you are opening doors to all kinds of liberty, freedom, therapy, and everything. So I would say, don't stay stuck to say, well, what am I going to do? He pays the bills. Yeah, he's hitting me, but where am I going to go? Don't let your excuses be the thing that's going to hold you and keep you captive in your situation. Get out. Go tell somebody. And I would tell children, you know, I don't care what this person is giving you. I don't care what they're saying to you. There's no Jordans, no piece of candy, no that much money in the world for someone to give to you in place of your innocence. Your body is yours. You're your own bodyguard. So you make a choice. What you want to do with this temple is yours. So I would say, tell somebody. Don't keep that in, because I love the letters me, because it's me that it has happened to. But at the same time, we trying to kill this epidemic, and we trying to continue to have a voice. So if you, Shamiko, say something, I say something, just think how loud our voices will continue to be. So I can sit in my living room and say molestation epidemic and do 99.9 documentaries, but it's going to take everybody that has been in this situation to open their mouths and just be real boisterous with it, be big with it. And people, it's starting to come out now. I mean, people are saying, me too, me too, me too. But at the end of the day, this thing has gone way back since when? 70s, 60s. It's been there for a long time. So take this situation from under the rug, and let's do the work, and protect children, parents, mothers, single mothers and fathers, because they go through it as well. But you all can find me on Facebook. I have a page, is called Me, and then the acronym for Me is Molestation Epidemic. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook under Ira Warren. I will have a page, a website coming up soon where you can reach me and know where I'll be and doing different activities and workshops. So that's another thing that's going to take place here in the near future. And you can find me also, you can email me, molestationepidemic@gmail.com. If you have some questions or if you need some help, I know a lot of therapists. I know even safe places that you can go. So, so if you can't get to me, there is a hotline. Please call those hotlines. There is shelters that you can go to. But if you're in the Philadelphia area and you need some help, we can get you some help.
Well, thank you for your time this evening. Thank you for sharing your story as well as your resources there at the end. And I look forward to learning more about the molestation epidemic and all the great work you're doing. I'm back in the classroom at a level 5 school in Maryland. And I think I've learned more about children experiencing sexual abuse in this school than I have in my 20 plus years of living alone. Because I've had friends and relatives and things of that nature who've experienced it, but just in my building right now, so many children you just would not know. So I definitely commend you for the work you do, and definitely mentioning that it's happening to young boys, because I think for some reason that is often overlooked, that we talk to our daughters and our nieces and, little female cousins about these things and being their own bodyguard and protecting themselves. But I don't think that we have that conversation with the same delicacy with our young men.
Right. Right. And they're more so on the rise than they are the girls. Because if you look at the statistics, the boys are, they're up there, and they just don't know how to express and share those feelings. But that's our goal. We want to, make sure that our young men, grow up and have a healthy life and be healthy for our community. And they're going to have children one day too. And we just don't want to keep this stigma just going on and on and on, and no one is getting any help. So.
Absolutely. So again, thank you for joining me in the discussion room this evening. If you are listening to this, please share with a friend, share with someone in need, get the resources out there to those who may be in touch with someone who's experienced something similar to Ira, who needs the courage to be bold enough to share their story because she shared hers. And if you're new to the discussion room, again, my name is Miss Reed, the founder of DaaamnDaddy.com, and that's DAAMN and you just joined us in the discussion room.
Bye.